Good morning, John Neal here. It is Tuesday, the 21st of June, 2022. That means it's the summer solstice and the sun's out. In fact, there's not a cloud in the sky. Great. Today I'm going to go on a bike ride into South Leicestershire and have a look at some of the features of the villages. This is where a forge was. You can sort of tell. Old Ford Cottage 1, 2 and 3. I don't think there's anybody in. Let me just creep in. And you can guess what this building over here was. Of course, the post office. They've even done a red door and kept the post box. I think it's still being used actually, but that was the post office. And all these villages had a range of people living in them. So there were basically the workers, and these are the sorts of cottages that had been very small and now been gentrified. But when I say small, that is one in the corner. I presume it goes out, but the way they've designed is already designed, the way they've been built. If I switch around the other way, you can see a Methodist church, which we had before, and the door's open. Shall I go in?
Good morning.
Hello. Can I come in and just have a quick look?
You certainly can. You're very welcome. This is, at the moment, you see, we're set up for Bible study.
Right.
If you come tomorrow afternoon, it will be craft group.
Right.
If you're coming on Sunday, the seats will be in rows and it'll be church.
A service, yeah.
And then on Thursday, the first Thursday in the month, it'll be a coffee morning.
Right.
But it all happens here.
Yeah, super. You're just having a practice, are you?
Well, I'm look no hands organist. I am. I only have to press a button and it plays.
Oh well, it's all the same in the end. So what's your name?
I'm Ursula.
Ursula.
Cox.
I sent you from the continent, madam.
I am. I was born in Berlin.
Really? Yeah.
But a very, very long time ago.
Well, me too. We all get there, hopefully, some point. Ursula then went on to explain that Geoffrey Fisher, who became the Archbishop of Canterbury, was actually brought up in this village, and this house, which is the church now here, this Methodist church, was converted to a church in 1959, but built by a certain Jack Brown, who hand carted literally the bricks from about and the windows from a distance away, 10 miles or more, to create this building. Let me allow Ursula to tell you more about Geoffrey Fisher. Yeah.
And he started his school life in our village school. And there's a blue plaque on the on the school.
So what I'm actually interested in is that we've actually got two churches here.
Yes.
So why is that? Why isn't there one church? You're all Christians after all?
Yes. Well, this building, this has been a church since 1959, isn't it?
Yes, it says that, yeah.
So
That's quite modern then, isn't it, for some of them?
It wasn't always a church, although you might think it was.
Yes, it looks very church-like.
But as you can see, he lived next door in that old cottage next door, the green one, and built this as a home. And in fact, if you go across the road, you can see there are two front doors. So they were very small homes.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
And in the end, the parish had to put the roof on or finish it off because he had died in the attempt.
Yeah, who was this? Who are you talking about?
Oh, this is Jack. He brought the bricks.
Jack Brown, it says here.
Yep, that's him.
Yeah.
He brought the bricks from Wilnecote, wherever that might be, and the windows he brought on foot all the way from whatever it says there.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable feat because it's.
It says that he fetched the bricks in a handcart from Wilnecote.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is down off towards Tamworth Way.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have two churches.
Two churches, yeah.
But we work very closely together. In fact, we are, as it were, but one. We organize our services so there's always a service in the village.
Yeah.
If you see, at the moment they don't have an incumbent.
Yeah, there's
But-
thin on the ground, really.
When they get one, they only get the whole benefice only gets half a
Yeah,
person,
yeah,
and so we support each other.
yeah.
If we don't have a service, they have a service. But this Bible study we're about to embark on is joint.
Right,
Coffee is joint.
yeah.
Everything is joint. Messy Church is joint.
Thank you very much. Well, Ursula was talking about there being two front doors. Here's one, and here's another, which is no longer a door. So if that was two houses, interesting. And this is the cottage next door. This was a pub called the Fox, and it's now a very pleasant and large private home. There's a couple more being built at the back here, look. I'm in the churchyard of St Peter's Church in Higham on the Hill. Now, I've set off today not really knowing what I was going to do. I just took it as it came. Last time I was out, I was talking about flowers. That is a wren, by the way. Very, very loud. Very small, very loud. And so I've come into the village. My plan is to try and get to Market Bosworth, and I may get there yet. I've only got a certain amount of time to do all this. And there's a plane coming through now. So I was going to look at the villages that we're in, and in the 19th century, really, these villages were of a particular type. All the villages in Middle England and maybe all over Britain were very similar. Each one would have a church. It would have a rectory or a vicarage, which would be quite a large house for the size of the villages. Then there'd be workers' houses, and then there'd be one or two rather bigger houses. And some of the workers' children, the girls in particular, would work in those houses as servants because they needed a lot of upkeep, and would have, half a dozen or so cooks, maids, gardeners, and so on. So the society was very much built on a big hierarchy of those who were quite well off, the landowners, the clergy, and other people, maybe industrialists around here, because there were other towns which were very rich with their industrial corporations and industry. And then there'd also be, because there weren't any cars or horses, so there would be a forge, and there would be a post office, possibly, when post offices came into being later on in the 19th century. And all these things are still sort of, there are remnants of them in the villages now. Because nowadays, of course, the villages they're not totally different, because they maintain much of that character, but they are full of houses which have been gentrified. So the old little cottages, oddly enough, have been made into smart residential ones, but they're still tiny, and they sell for terrible prices, which is strange. Or sometimes they're built new ones, and there's a perfect example just behind me, and it is quite a place. Because the pub, of course, oh yes, I forgot to say, there would always be a pub in the village as well, which is much of a meeting place as it was anything else. And sadly, many of those are going because people don't live those sorts of lives. This is an old pub called the Odd Fellows Arms, which I've been in, I've eaten at, I've played music at, and I've done the sign writing. In fact, that hanging sign up there, not my original artwork, but I did refurbish it. That's essentially my work. Did all these boards around the edge here, and now it's up for sale and the land will be built on. And sadly, many of those are going because people don't live those sorts of lives. They travel by car, and in fact, if I'm travelling the roads here around 4 o'clock, the roads are pretty busy with people whizzing backwards and forwards going back to their rather nice residential properties in the country. So I've come to this church just to have a bit of quiet, but I managed to stop by at the Methodist Church here in Higham on the Hill and had a lovely chat with the Ursula, the lady there, who was originally German. And yes, she I bet she had a story to tell as to why she's here. But they were very nice people, and I had a little bit of an insight as to the way the two churches work together, both this one, which is Church of England, and the Methodist Church. Slightly different approaches to their Christianity. And it seems, as I pointed out in the last video, there are nearly always a parish church in the village and a Methodist church, which stemmed from the 19th century when the Methodism as a church movement grew up for the working class rather than the aristocracy or the middle class. Well, who thought this day was going to go this way? I was trying to go and get to Market Bosworth. Maybe I just have to shut up, get on my bike and get pedalling. Should we do that? Yeah. And as is often the case in this countryside, we cross over the Ashby Canal. And so on to Stoke Golding. I pointed this out before, but these villages near Leicestershire, well in Leicestershire, near Leicester, were outposts for various small industries of hosiery. And so there would be one or two houses here, maybe one of these look huge, that would have belonged to these industrialists. As I pointed out in my last video, another small church in Stoke Golding, a Baptist church. I think it's always polite to take sunglasses off, I think. Just pause here for a moment by the canal. The 19th century development of the industries in the Midlands, Coventry, Birmingham, and the north, the cotton industries, were just huge. They really were. And much of it based on the British Empire that in the 19th century was at its epoch. And so much of the industries around here would provide tools, machines and clothing for not only Britain, but the places far, Australia, Canada, India, so all sorts of places in Africa as well. So we exported a huge amount, and so the vast wealth that was generated from that came back to Britain, which is why we have some fantastic Victorian buildings, town halls and other establishments based on the vast profits made from those industries. And I have to say, at the early days, of course, the industries were based on slavery in foreign lands, in the West Indies and America as well. But I think we were fairly instrumental in bringing those slavery practices to a halt, which was obviously an extremely good thing. Yeah, so let's move on. Hello, mister. You have a bit of grass for breakfast, that's nice. Well, that is a giant hogweed. The sap is very irritating, particularly in the sunshine, so mustn't go near it. This is another one coming up, but it's a huge plant. You can see it's related to the cow parsley and the cow parsnip. Morning. Somebody once said that back in the day, poor people had horses and rich people had cars. Nowadays, it's the rich people have the horses and the poor people have the cars. I think it's true. And so into the village of Dadlington and out into the countryside again, down to the canal. This is Sutton Wharf, which is a widened area of the canal where the boats can turn round, but they're mostly pleasure boats, of course, and this is a car park and a very popular spot for people to come along and enjoy the cafe, and some people to be on their boats. There used to be a nice flower bed there. I think they're putting a new and better one up. The other one was quite good. Well, this is Sutton Sheeny. And there's the church. It's a funny little church. Reminds me of a... Well, no, it's just a funny little church, put it like that. We are just 2 miles from Shenton, and sounds like some cyclists coming by. There they go. But I'm going this way, known as the gated road. The countryside round here is just fabulous, particularly on a day like today. Well, there's no two ways about it. This has got to be one of the prettiest roads that we can cycle along. I love going into these shadows, look at them. These big oak trees each side. Beautiful shadows coming across. touch on a point here about farming and the farmers' fields and the countryside, because we have here what is the industry of the countryside. And this is a huge field. I mean, it must be, I'll take a guess, 100 acres, and it's full of barley. Look at it, loads of it, right the way across. And I know the farmer Fred Wynne, who farms this land, but he is conscious of the fact that you need to look after the wildlife too, because this is basically nothing more than a desert for wildlife. His job is to grow barley, and he does it very successfully. But he also does look after the countryside as well, and he's concerned about that. There's a big wood over there, which you can see, which they manage. And down here is what must be 15 yards of land to the side, but just grassland. And right at the top here, you can see just about, there is, let me just get that bit in focus. See, there's a white strip, which is just left. I think they actually seed it with wildflowers. So they do a certain amount to keep the wildlife happy. And of course, it's dotted with one or two rather large trees, which again, he would probably find it easier to manage the field without them, but they're left in place and they're fine. Some organic material to put on the field as and when later on. And this is a little barn which is now unused, and surrounded by quite a few bushes and trees, which is very nice. Back on the bike. Right, I'm going to do a bit of riding and talking, because you can't miss out on this. Look at this. This, I think, is cow parsnip rather than cow parsley. Look at these lovely oak trees. This one's huge. Just outside of Market Bosworth. Yeah, you can hear me breathing. This is deceptively a bit of a hill on the approach to Market Bosworth. I'm just a poor old overweight unfit old guy, so you'll have to accept me puffing and panting a bit. And so we enter Market Bosworth. Well, it says here that this marks the place where his mortal remains rested on their final journey to Leicester Cathedral, that of Richard III. It's 22nd of March 2015, next to this war memorial, really. Yeah, in the village of, well, it's a small town. Is it a big village, small town? Market Bosworth. After all the villagers around would have come to one central point like this, and there's a big square here in the middle, which would be a marketplace. And it still held, they have a farmer's market here periodically as well. As I go underneath the Ashby Canal, ahead of us on the left, not here but here, is a big house built by an industrialist from Hinckley. And I've got some drone footage from a couple of years ago, look, to show you how big it is. Beautiful place. While talking of using the fields for encouraging wildlife and leaving them to go wild, I'm on the very corner of Fox Covert Lane here, and I've been here before and filmed flew the drone too, because over here, this is where the Battle of Bosworth actually took place. But there's a stream going along this edge of this field here, which gives one reason that it might have been marshy for the time of the battle back in the 15th century. But look, this field, I say there's about, maybe 50 acres here, completely left. And it's this side of that stream. So the far side is cultivated with some crops, some cereal crop of some sort. And then all this has been left. And what a wonderful environment it would be for wildlife. Voles, mice, and then owls and kestrels, and what have you. Yeah, beautiful. So what the reason is behind this, or whether it's been purposely done, I'm not sure. But whatever it is, it's a good thing. Yeah. There we have it. That's been quite a warm day, but it's a blackbird on the roof. Sorry about that. Anyway, thanks for watching, and look, I've nearly got 500 subscribers. It's too many. Don't subscribe, but please comment, that'd be nice. Be interesting to hear what you've got to say. So yeah, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Actually, you'll see me.